Welcome everyone. We're going to get started in a little bit. We're waiting for a few more folks to flow into the webinar. Hello and welcome to the Sbdc Tech's second annual Women Talk Tech Conference series. I'm Julie Cranston, Director of the Sbdc at UC IBL Applied Innovation, and I'd like to thank you so much for joining us today. Today's webinar is brought to you by the Sbdc at UC IBL Applied Innovation, UCI EPIC Sbdc, and Octane Launchpad. The Sbdc is funded in part by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the state of California. The Sbdc is here to help you start, grow, and succeed in your business by providing no-cost expert consulting and training such as this webinar. A little housekeeping before we begin. Everyone is muted during the webinar. Tomorrow, the recorded webinar and a PDF copy of the slides will be sent to all participants. We will have time for Q&A with our panel at the end of the presentation, but please feel free to ask questions during the webinar by clicking on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. A quick note, if our panel runs long, our panelists have graciously agreed to stay to answer questions for a few minutes past the 1 o'clock hour. So if you can stay logged on, please do. The recording will include both the panel and Q&A, so you won't miss any of the great insights from the panel. Okay, so before we get started with our panel discussion, I'd like to welcome some of our most important stakeholders who would like to say a few words. First of all, Christopher Lorenzana, Deputy District Director, the U.S. Small Business Administration, OCIE District. Christopher.
Hi, good afternoon, Julie, and welcome everyone. Julie, thank you so much for this opportunity to briefly say hello and welcome on behalf of the Small Business Administration to this fantastic group of attendees that we have today on the line. I'd like to applaud you. Again, Julie Cranston, the Director of the Sbdc at UCI IBL Applied Innovation, and the other two Sbdcs that make up what we call Sbdc Tech. The other two centers are Launchpad at Octane and UCR's EPIC, as well as the Sbdc Lead Center for your leadership in presenting this valuable conference today. For those that may not know, the nationwide network of small business development centers, or Sbdcs, are part of the SBA family, whereby we provide seed funding, support, and we work hand in hand with them, with the state of California through GoBiz and through local hosts like UCI to serve the community. And our internal SBA data shows that startups with an Sbdc mentor perform better than those without. So I would highly encourage you to connect with an Sbdc consultant in the very near future. What really stands out to me about this conference today and over the next few weeks is that it aims to provide women innovators in tech and life science with real world advice and actionable insights that you can immediately implement into your business. And I think that that's really what we all want when we invest our time, right, into events and webinars. And so kudos to the planners of the conference. This group of panelists that you'll be hearing from throughout the upcoming weeks are really women that have been there and they've done that, and they have a wealth of knowledge to share. And so they are also investing their time to give back to the community. And as the father of a 12-year-old girl, all of the panelists serve as an example that I'm going to definitely share these recordings with my daughter to serve as inspiration for her as she continues her journey and learning what she would like to do, right, when she, quote, grows up. And so with that, I just want to welcome you all again, and I can't wait for the next few weeks. Thanks again, Julie.
Thank you so much, Christopher. And now I'd like to introduce Isabel Guzman, Director of the Office of the Small Business Advocate, Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. Isabel?
Thank you, Julie, and also to the incredible Sbdc network that you help lead. It's super strong in the Southern California region. As Christopher outlined, there are multiple tech and innovation focused hubs, and so I'm really excited to be here with you. GoBiz, which is the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, supports the network of small business centers through my office, which is the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. And we're really here to try to provide information and resources to small businesses and innovative startups, as well as advocate on their behalves across private sector and government, and just ensure that they're there's resilience in the community. Overall, California and Governor Newsom are focused on a California for all, which really means for us, the economy works for everyone. And for me in my office, that the ecosystems work for everyone, regardless of race, gender, or zip code. And so that is our commitment. And we're really proud to fund this network of small business centers along with our SBA colleagues, especially as I used to be at the SBA as the Deputy Chief of Staff during the Obama administration. Super excited about this conference in particular, as even beyond our equity agenda, we know that women will power our recovery, just as they did in the 2008 recession. Women-owned businesses combined with firms owned by people of color were key in stabilizing and regrowing the economy after the Great Recession. And I think you've all probably heard a lot of the data, but one that really has always taken me aback is the fact that if you combine women-owned businesses with POC-owned businesses, that they added 1.8 million jobs between 2007 and 12. And that was while white male-owned businesses lost 800,000 jobs in that same period. So it's a super incredible statistic, especially knowing the barriers and the challenges that women and POC-owned businesses face. And that post-recession growth continued with women-owned small businesses continuing to grow at higher rates in terms of the number of small businesses than their peers across the board. There was a 9% growth, while women-owned small businesses, the number of them grew by 21%, and the number of POC-owned women-owned businesses by 43%. So pretty remarkable what women have done to help recover our economy and lead it. And I know that the data is overwhelming, and why these conferences are so key is because that there are those barriers that exist in terms of raising capital and connecting in those networks. And so despite the fact that women do outperform in terms of revenue creation than their male founders, the VC capital, access is more limited. So that to me is resilience more than anything. So women have to be resilient and have the tenacity and risk-taking and ability to adapt and change in order to empower the economy as they've been able to do for so long. And it's really about that core, especially your innovative spirits here today, and knowing that you can make the world better for you, your families, your communities. And it's why my office is so inspired by you all. We're here to definitely provide all the resources and services that we can and advocate on your behalf. And conferences like these that allow you to access incredible advisors and peers who have successfully grown and scaled their businesses are really important. So appreciate this event. I know that in terms of our future recovery in California and your ability to access capital markets and networks, that we're going to be here for you along with the networks. And so excited that you're participating in this over the next few weeks, and I look forward to tracking your successes. Thank you so much for having me, and best of luck these next few weeks.
Thank you so much, Isabel. We really appreciate your time and your thoughts today. And now we'll hear from Mike Daniel, Director of the OCIE Sbdc Regional Network.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending the first part of this 4-part series around Women Talk Tech. For those of you that don't know what the Sbdc or the Small Business Development Program is, we're here to help you one-on-one through consulting and training, really start, grow, and exit in your business depending on where you are at. We have a team of 3 tech centers, and you heard from Julie Cranston from the Ibm Applied Innovation Sbdc. You also will hear from JC Ruffalo from the Launchpad Sbdc, which is part of Octane, and Scott Brofsky, part of the Epic Sbdc. They're super strong directors. I believe we are one of the only networks, and we cover Orange County, Inland Empire, so San Bernardino and Riverside County as well. I think we're one of the only Sbdc networks in the state and the country that actually has 3 tech centers, really here around 3 different areas, right? So whether it's SBIR, STTR, which we have a conference going on right now around that, equity investment, and you're gonna hear a lot about, how to start and scale your business, I think through these 4 weeks. You'll also hear about virtual demo day, which I hope you can all attend the last day of this, which will be a virtual demo day, I believe, with 3 women entrepreneurs talking about their product or service, and then how and the type of investment they're looking for. It's just a wealth of information. And just keep in mind as you hear this, really the goal here is that, between Julie, JC, and Scott's team, We have about 50 different consultants that are all experts in various aspects of technology, equity raising, around capital, or whatever your business may need. You can come see them. And the great part is that you heard from Christopher Lorenzana from the SBA, you heard from Isabel Guzman from the governor's office. They have both put funding into our program to make sure that we can offer these services to you at no cost. So we want to make sure that you understand that, and that if you've never been to an SBDC, that you talk to Julie, you talk to Scott, you talk to JC, figure out how they can help you and make an appointment. We try to make it as simple as possible. But with that, I hope everybody, successful conference. I thank everybody on this panel. I know it's going to be an amazing panel, and good luck. And if there's anything I can do for you, please don't hesitate to let me know. So back to you, Julie.
Thanks so much, Mike, and thank you to all our stakeholders. We appreciate your support and partnership so much. And as Mike said, this is no cost, no catch, one-on-one consulting. All three of our centers work with high-tech, high-growth, scalable businesses. You can reach us at any of these numbers or URLs on the left. And we help you start, grow, and succeed. So that's our mission. That's all we do all day long. We're all working remotely right now and putting on all these great programs, including IP licensing for startups, which is coming up next week, and our Women Talk Tech funding panel next Thursday. JC, do you want to introduce your center really quickly since I see you're on, and talk a little bit about Virtual Demo Day, which will cap off the last on the 5th of November?
Sure. Thank you, Julie. And thank you to Isabel, Christopher, and Mike for all of your continued support. I'm really excited about today's conference, and I run the Launchpad Sbdc hosted by Octane. We focus on a little bit later stage in terms of a startup, in terms of the evolution. We help companies with their investor deck presentation and try and expose them to our capital network, whether that's VC, family office, high net worth individual. We try and help those companies grow, scale, and as Julie mentioned, succeed. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if we can be of value to you and help you grow and make an impact. That's what we're here for. Companies that you'll see on the virtual demo day are companies that have recently completed our Launchpad Sbdc program that are looking for their next round of institutional capital. So a VC Technologies in the ophthalmology market, she's looking for, I want to say $3 million. She's successfully already raised about half of that so far. And the other company, AgTools, which she just raised about $1 million, she's looking for her next round of, I believe, 5. So we've had some great success working with both those companies. You'll see their presentations. They'll each give a 10-minute investment type presentation. And seriously, don't hesitate to reach out to them for their expertise, as well as they can be a great peer group for you to connect with, and maybe they can provide some insight to you as well. So really looking forward to the demo day next week. So back to you, Julie.
Great, thanks so much. Thanks so much, JC. Yeah, and our center works with similar clients at a slightly earlier stage. So we're kind of that continuous pipeline of assistance all the way from start to exit. Our company that's going to be pitching on the 5th is Nuclear Technology. So a woman founder with nuclear technology. It should be a really exciting day. Thanks so much for JC for joining. And so I wanted to introduce our moderator today. Our moderator today for our leadership panel is Tracy Podell, executive coach at Evolution. Tracy has firsthand experience building the plane while she flies it. After years working in early stage startups that achieved explosive growth and then acquisition by companies like Viacom and Tinder, she's seen the pitfalls and challenges startup executives can encounter. She now dedicates her career to helping VP and C-level leaders navigate through challenges while scaling their tech companies. Thank you so much for being here today, Tracy. I'll turn the program over to you to have our panelists introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much, everyone. Today's panel is really about what it looks like to be an impactful and successful startup leader. And there are so many different challenges that you'll face as a leader throughout the day, week, month, and every stage of your startup. And what being an effective leader looks like isn't always totally clear, right? And it shifts. So today we really want to hear from these powerful, successful women about what it looks like on the ground, what their leadership, impactful leadership looks like. So I'm going to start by letting them introduce themselves. Debbie, you'll go first.
Very good, thank you. It's very nice to be here with you all. My name is Debbie Liebert. I am an executive and struggling venture capital person. and happy to see you. But my career started out in big pharma. I worked my way through Merck, and after Merck, I took advantage of the biotech surge in San Diego and then helped a number of startup companies in the biopharma space get launched, figure out their management teams, and led all of development. From there, I started doing more corporate development and got involved in new company creation and joined Domain Associates, which is one of the earliest healthcare-only venture capital groups. And with Domain, I continued company creation as well as ran portfolio management, sat on board of directors. I currently am on the board of Milestone Pharmaceuticals, and I continue to work with startup groups, right now one that's looking at neurodegenerative diseases.
Thank you so much. Irene.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm really pleased and to be with the group of everyone here. I'm Irene Woerner, the CEO of emTRUTH, shameless plug over here. emTRUTH is my second startup. I'm a serial entrepreneur, just like with my co-founder. My first startup was traditionally venture funded, and it was acquired by a publicly traded company. Prior to the starting that first startup, I was at Jet Propulsion Laboratory at NASA, where I was responsible for software on the spacecraft to Pluto, as well as the ground systems. And I also had a team of researchers as the principal investigator on a number of advanced information software research programs. So I've spent my entire career being on the technical and leadership side in mainly male-dominated industries, and had been successful at it, but I have a lot of battle scars that I hope to share with you guys today. Founded emTRUTH with my co-founder on a very simple premise, which is we want to do something that we believe in that will make a difference, and we want to have a team of people that share our values. So that was important to us, and that was one of the battle scar lessons, you know, that it's really important how you work and who you work with, because you know, the corporate culture of a small company is quite fragile, and so it's something that you want to nurture and help build. So really pleased to be here.
Welcome, Irene. Thank you. Jenna?
Hi, Tracy. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Jenna Anderson. I am the mother of 3 lovely little girls, so love empowering women. And I'm the CEO of AccessElite, a company that really focuses on helping companies and individuals be well through experiential programming and events. I have clearly been bitten by the bug of entrepreneurship. I, at this point in my career, have worked at or for over a dozen startups in multiple industries. Along the same time frame, I've worked with multiple large companies, all in the predominantly healthcare and health tech space, and excited to be pursuing my passion of well-being in my current venture.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Before we get into it, I just want to, I'm so excited to hear from this wealth of experience, and I know our audience is too. I just want to get permission to interrupt you if need be so I can keep us on track and hear from everyone. Does that work for you all? Normally, I would not recommend interrupting powerful women leaders, but today we have that agreement. So my first question is, what is your leadership style and how has it shifted over your career? And Debbie, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, I guess the best way to express my leadership style is that it's all about the vision. And I'm pursuing a vision of what an opportunity could be. But as I'm pursuing that vision, I'm developing teams and helping them to think for themselves, to problem solve and deliver results. You know, I need a team, the team needs me. And when you find that balance where you're on the same page, the realization of the vision becomes magical. With respect to my style shifting with the years, I think I'm putting more emphasis on clarity and communication of the vision and being nimble in an environment that is constantly changing. And what I'm also finding is that I take a lot more time trying to communicate the why. Why are we doing something in a certain way? And then that helps our teams coalesce around what we're trying to do together.
I love that because it's so much of startup is go, 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 go. And sometimes we lose sight of, well, why are we doing this? Why are we staying up all night? You know, what is the vision?
Exactly.
So Irene, you're next.
Yes, great. So my leadership style, I think most of you can already tell, I'm a very straightforward person. So I kind of tell it like it is. People never have to question, you know, they can always ask me, you know, what my position is or how I feel and, you know, how we can work better together and what, you know, they all are also interested in. And I think where it's shifted over time, you know, is that when I first started out, I think that I had a need to always be perfect. You know, because you're a woman, you're the only one there, you feel like you really have to be always perfect. And I find that that's not necessarily true. I think people understand, you know, that we all have difficult days that we need to talk through. We have really great days that we all want to celebrate. And so that helps because I think when you kind of round your edges and soften your edges a little bit to let yourself, your authentic self shown, much like what Debbie has said, you know, people feel better about that and that they're part of a team. And I think that that's an important thing to do is that you're not only the coach and the visionary, but you're also the backup support, you know, in the event people need the help that they need to do to get what they need done. And so I think, you know, trying to wear those hats and still be a person, you know, I think is where I've changed the most. And I think that's been, for me, very effective because it's more authentic.
Yeah, really allowing space for our humanity to be here on this crazy journey. Jenna, what is your leadership style and how has it shifted?
Yeah, no, those were great responses. I think really for me, it's about empowering the strengths within my team. So figuring out and identifying where are people strong and making sure that where they're strong is also aligning with their current role and being comfortable saying, hey, I may have hired you to do this, but I see that your strengths are here. So let's go ahead and put you there and then support you to succeed and motivate you along the way. I'm also not afraid to get into the trenches. When you work in a startup, that means that you do everything from sweeping the floor to setting the vision. And I think that my leadership style is, you know, if I'm going to ask of you, I'm going to do it myself and making sure that my team feels supported in that process. When I think about shifts, as I've grown into my career, I think I've gotten more confident and comfortable with letting others lead and also not feeling the need to micromanage. Which I think you do in early on in your career, and it's, you know, get to the finish line at any cost, sometimes at the expense of somebody's, you know, morale, and that's definitely not my goal. So I think that's shifted over time, that the culture and morale of the team is as important as the outcome, and prioritizing that effectively.
Thank you. You really speak to there's a shift where you have to start giving your crayons away, and it's not just you owning everything, and that's scary. So what advice do you all have for up and coming women leaders in your industry? And this is a two-parter. How would you advise your younger self based on the lessons you've learned? So Jenna, we're going to start this one off with you.
Yeah, the best advice I would give to my 20-something self is don't be afraid. I think early on in your career, you are hesitant, and I've seen that in a lot of women I've mentored, that if you don't know how to do something, you're not capable of doing it. And it couldn't be further from the truth. If you have the motivation and the passion, you'll get the know-how, especially if you're willing to ask for help. So the first bit of advice I would give is just go for it. Take the leap of faith, trust in your gut, and try. And then the second piece of advice is just keep trying. Because I think when you hit a wall, the first thought you have is, oh, it can't be done, or I can't do it, or I'm feeling uncomfortable. And sometimes that uncomfortable feeling is the best feeling because it means you're learning and growing. So embrace it and keep moving forward because the dynamic of the markets are continually changing. And the sign of a good leader or somebody who will thrive in entrepreneurship is having the motivation and the go-getter attitude to figure it out. And I think that has really helped me in my career to just say, no matter what, I'll figure it out. We'll get it done.
Absolutely. Thank you. That is wonderful advice. Irene?
Yeah, I want to build off of what Jenna said. I think the advice to my younger self is that it's okay to let go because, you know, you're always trying to do everything yourself and it doesn't scale. If you want your business to scale, you have to trust your team to do the things that it needs to get done. They might not do it the way that you want to do it, They might not even do it, you know, in a traditional fashion. But if they can get it done, and oftentimes get it done better than you know, that's really what you want to empower. And I think that's an important thing. And then also really believing in you know, what you feel is the right thing to do. And I'll share a quick story. You know, in my first startup, when we were doing customer discovery in terms of what to charge the customer, you know, our venture capital investors had a bunch of, you know, we won't say what Ivy League school, but, you know, a bunch of MBAs come and help me. And we had one customer, you know, very large company that was a truly strong advocate for us. And they said, oh, this is, you know, what the market will bear. This is what you should charge. And I said, oh, no, that is not right. That's not the right thing to do. And we were fighting really pretty hardly about that. And I acquiesced because I figured, okay, this is my first commercial company. I've never been in the marketplace before. Here's a bunch of people well credentialed. And, you know, turns out I was right. You know, when we presented that program to that big company, they were really taken aback. And it took us months to rebuild that relationship. And ultimately afterwards, that one of the consultants came up to me and said, oh, you know what, Irene, you had really good intuition, which struck me as a funny thing to say to a woman, you know. And you know, self-editing is another thing that you learn, and I would give advice to women, you know, don't burn any bridges. Even if you have stuff you want to say. My response to that was like I said, I don't think it's intuition. I was closer to the customer and really listening to what they want. And so you want to base things on fact. And sometimes you just get these things. They don't mean anything by it, but, you know, oftentimes you just want to counteract that kind of perception, you know, and you do, because you know what you're doing. You're closest to the problem, you know what you're doing, despite what the credentials are. So I think that's the best advice. Listen to what you think you know in your heart is correct and fight for it. And then also let go, because otherwise you cannot scale your business.
Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, there's such a balance of taking in all the advice that's coming at you and then just trusting yourself, because you're the one that's running this business.
Yeah.
Debbie, sorry.
Yeah, and I think I'm going right back to where Jenna started us. And I think the advice to myself would be to never doubt your value and the things you can accomplish. And maybe Irene, it was you that said that, you know, I'll figure it out and I can do it. But I think that there are a lot of caveats to that advice. I do think that one needs to have confidence in yourself, but you have to do the homework. You have to do the hard work, or you're not going to get anywhere. You know, you can't just wish you're going to be there and have an ego and you're going to arrive. You actually have to do the hard work. Excuse me. And to something that Irene said, you know, you have to believe in yourself, but you have to embrace opposing opinions and be able to demonstrate and pull people along to your way of thinking and your way of seeing and analyzing a problem. And again, that's having confidence that you believe in what you're doing, you believe that you have the answer, and you're going to push forward and seek resolution. And then I think the last bit would be to please, please, please be wildly creative. But then base yourself in reality when it needs to be. I think some of us can contain what we need to do by not allowing this explosion of creativity, because too often reality slaps us down. But I think there has to be a balance between being creative and seeing what can happen in our real world.
Thank you so much. I want to follow that up with another question for you, Deb, which is, when you're trying to make an investment, how do you evaluate the leadership? How do you evaluate the founders, the team, and saying, hey, you know, this is really what I want to get behind and make a stand for?
And that's such an important question, because it's not just the technology, it is the team that's coming forward who's going to realize the promise of the technology. After doing VC work for over 13 years, I've seen some very, very successful pitches and some very unsuccessful pitches. But I think my best advice would be to always effectively communicate your opportunity and consider about that opportunity in the competitive landscape. Sometimes people just want to present the positive approach to their idea or the opportunity, and they don't take enough time to show that they've truly evaluated the risks to their proposal and what they're going to do to mitigate those risks. I think that always when you come into an investment office, come with an open mind, come to be conversational. Don't let the pressures of how badly you need the funding get in the way of your conversation, because I think that often VCs, especially my colleagues that I've worked with for years, they appreciate what you're going through, and they've been there and often can be very instructional and have great ideas even if they're not going to make an investment. So I guess some do's and don'ts: do listen, don't become defensive. That is what tanks most of bad proposals. Sometimes the proposal's good, but the team is just like, do it my way, it's only this way. I also think sometimes teams don't think far enough ahead. They can think from A to B, but we really need to understand all the way to Z. What is the big idea? What is it going to be in the marketplace? So, you need to be prepared. And part of that preparation is talking to KOLs, and in my world, what do patients need? What do prescribers need? And then I think maybe the last bit is, again, don't dismiss the value that the VCs can bring to your idea and help you. And I know personally, I've had several investments where, or investment opportunities where we didn't make the investment, yet I worked with that team, for weeks afterwards to help them get ready for the next opportunity. So you can make some friends in the VC world, and you can get some, your funding as well, but do listen. I think listening is a big part of it.
Yeah, it really sounds like there's an opportunity to build a trusting relationship that may look like here's a check, or it may look like I'm making a call for you or advising or further down the line. Thank you. So we've had a really interesting year. We're all mostly working remote. So what I want to know is, what are some opportunities for success in empowering your team and culture while navigating this remote work environment? So I think we've all covered the basics of like how to work from home and so forth, but like, well, what are the opportunities you see for success to empower your team and their culture? So Irene, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Yeah, I think that for us as a startup, as a brand new startup in particular, we've always been remote. And so it was the shift to COVID, I think, has made everybody, more remote. And I think some of the same lessons learned, that we know to help us better communicate, to keep in touch, and to stay on the same page, and continue to share the progress as well as the vision is important. So some things that I find, is that I tend to over communicate, and I ask the team to do the same. It's better for everyone to know what's going on, and you really want to hone your communication style so that you get crisply to the point of the heart of the matter, the things that are important and the things that are priority. And I put it very simply, just like I'll ask them, what are the top 3 priorities that you're working on? These are the things that I'm working on. We want to make sure that they're completely aligned. I think that's important. The other things that are important is, prior to COVID, we always used to get together, when we could, to celebrate any victory. Whether it was, getting our first, completing our seed round of financing, which we did. And again, to Debbie's point, it's not just about the money. You want to be, thoughtful about the kind of VC partners that you're going to bring in, because it is a long-term relationship, and you want the help, and you want to grow together, and people that will help you scale. But we also try to do that. I'll have a giant Christmas party at my house, not just for our team, but for everybody involved, because their families are also making the sacrifices, and so we want to bring everybody together to understand that we're really in it together. And so in the absence of physical getting together and in the remote communications and so forth, I think it's also important to have, just fun time remotely, whether it's a virtual happy hour or something like that, where you're talking about something other than work. Because I think that's when you get to know each other really more as people. And when you know someone as a person, you're more likely to be more understanding of that particular point of view, even if it's contrary to yours.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jenna.
Yeah, the first thing I would say is that, you know, culture is crucial during this time. When you go remote, your culture changes. Everybody I talk to who says, oh, my culture hasn't changed, I'm like, absolutely it has. You're no longer in the office. You're no longer seeing each other every day and building those relationships. So you have to find ways to build them differently. Communication, playing off of what Irene says, is crucial. So talking to your team, creating opportunities for that connection, consistency. So having those standing meetings, that predictability and transparency, but probably most important, I think, in making the shift to working remote is finding opportunities for fun. You have to find ways for teams to connect and to get to know each other on a personal level and build those relationships, even when they're not seeing each other every day. So having standing team buildings on a weekly basis, doing fun ways to connect people socially, even if that socially is virtually. And I think those are more important now than they were before because you're not having that human connection.
Thank you, Jenna. Debbie? I'm just gonna every time. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's an easy name.
I can just start out by saying thank goodness for Zoom. I think I've exchanged my commute time for quality one-on-one time in Zoom meetings with individuals. The situation I'm in now is we're starting a brand new company, and there's many people that we're hiring I have never even met that are on the team. So you don't have that office time to establish trust and relationship. So I'm finding I'm spending a lot more of my time doing these one-on-one calls and listening a lot, and validating people's ideas and approaches, and using that one-on-one time where I normally wouldn't have the luxury of spending so much time with individuals, but I'm doing that a lot more now. And I think my environment is probably a little different than Irene and Jenna, because our company probably, maybe right now there's really 4 real employees and everyone else is a consultant. So you know, this is even a broader network. Consultants are often coming from different environments where they have their culture, and then you're trying to weave them and integrate them into the work you need to get done. But again, I don't know what I would do without Zoom.
I'm hearing like a lot of over communication. I think Irene and Debbie were just speaking to that, and this, and Jenna and Debbie, this translation of, you can't just take what worked in person and like slap it onto virtual. Like it needs to be adjusted. And then there comes the, you know, the Zoom fatigue and burnout, and that's its own question of how do you balance all these conversations and so forth. So Jenna, it sounds like it's been a really big year in your business, and I'm curious, what does it look like to successfully manage pivots in your business? Because so many startups, they start and then they pivot and then they have micro pivots and so forth. What does it look like to successfully lead that?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I think Irene said it perfectly on a previous call. She said, in a startup, you're always pivoting. And I don't know that she could have said it any other way. I'll basically tell you a story. So I had the extreme pleasure of commercially launching a business in January of this year that was dependent upon being on site. Wow, what a terrible time to launch that kind of business. And then obviously 6 weeks into launch, we were all told to go home and quarantine. And we put our heads together and we said, well, an on-site business is no longer going to be viable. And we have a team, and our goal is to thrive, succeed, and keep people employed. So we went back to the drawing board. In 8 weeks, we launched a new company pilot that was fully virtual. By June, we had it ready and commercially viable. We relaunched in July with a new fully virtual company, and we have doubled our revenue every month since July. And we are actually on track to be profitable by Q1. And that would not have been possible if we weren't willing to pivot. And even when we pivoted to a fully virtual model, we've pivoted a few times since then. We continually pivot and evolve. And I think the best advice I would give on that is be okay to say, I didn't have a good idea, or that idea is not going to work. And don't marry yourself emotionally to one concept, because essentially what will define success is what the market is willing to pay for. So even though you think you have a great business, if nobody's going to buy it because the market environment has changed, the customer has changed, the competition has changed, then essentially you kind of have to throw that out and start over, or take components of it and build it forward. And that has absolutely defined our success. And we wouldn't be here today if we weren't willing to pivot.
Wow. If I just, as a follow-up, if I were to ask you to toot your own horn, like what about your leadership style, the way you showed up in the face of like all these circumstances and these, because this was 8 weeks to launch a new business, and like, and then to double your revenue by July, like what do you think? Yeah, how might you toot your own horn about how you did that?
I would say that the biggest thing, and it would be a major shift for me personally, is I was vulnerable. I can look back on this year, and if you were to ask me even 3 years ago if I would have gotten emotional on the phone with my team, I would have said no. And I would have said that because to me, being emotional and vulnerable as a woman was a sign of weakness, and I didn't embrace it. And this year I owned it, I embraced it. I, shared transparently with the team where we were at, and I asked for help. And we as a team came together and we worked crazy long hours to make it happen. And it's 100% a team success in what we've created. But I don't know that that would have been possible if I wasn't willing to be vulnerable, let my guard down, share my own personal insecurities, and be transparent with the situation so that the team could come together and rally around that idea. And the advice I give to women is don't be afraid to own your emotions, your vulnerability, be transparent. I feel like in the current environment as a female leader, it's not something that's valued, that we can be emotional and tap into those emotions. And I think that's something uniquely that I've benefited from this year.
I think you really tap onto the straight up advice we were giving startup leaders at the beginning of this is, it's okay. You don't have to be like, we know exactly what we're doing and I'm confident you'll have your job. Like, it's inauthentic, and you're not going to have psychological safety and trust that way, which is what your team really needs right now in the middle of this crisis. And so if you had put on that face of, I know exactly what I'm doing, I'm a perfect, leader and in control, you wouldn't have had that opportunity to say, hey, we don't know what's next. We got to figure this. I don't know. We got to figure this out. So thank you for sharing that. And I think this also speaks to that as a founder, your role shifts during different stages of your company, right? When it's just you and your co-founder in a room to when it's 10 people in a room, and you got to wear all these different hats. So I'm curious, what needs to shift in terms of yourself as a leader and where you need to put your attention in different stages of a startup? And so Debbie, I'll start with you.
Okay. Yeah, in my world as a founder, and I think someone explained it before, you do everything. I am the chief negotiator. I do the diligence. I do the clinical research. I do everything possible and get my hands dirty and enjoy every second of it. When we finally get our seed funding is usually when we are able to hire a management team. So then this team becomes working shoulder to shoulder with experts in their area. It's more like a board table where you have mutual respect. People are contributing and own expertise for a certain piece of the puzzle. This environment is great. It takes a lot of responsibility off, and at that point, you're more integrating the elements of the plan. It does make me a bit sad for this aspect, because when we are hiring people who can hit the ground running, know their jobs, know what they have to do, we don't have time or opportunity for mentorship. So I feel that there's a whole element, a whole group of younger scientists and technologists who aren't benefiting the lessons that we're learning in these startup environments. And I think that personally, I would like to take on more, students or other people who are willing to do internships, because this is such a powerful group of people, and exposure to that powerful group of people is being limited to only those who know the secrets of the game, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Once we grow a little bit bigger, then you know, activities come down to more of your traditional roles as a CEO, in, you know, communicating vision and, you know, getting people to work together and teamwork and whatever. But I think the most critical is those very, very first days when you're doing everything, and then establishing that team that can then work shoulder to shoulder and get things accomplished and move the vision forward.
Thank you. And I know some people, their ears might have perked up when you said you were looking for Irene, what about you?
Yeah, so much like what Debbie said, you know, when you're first starting out with your startup, this core group of people, you know, your job as a CEO is basically, you know, chief cook and bottle washer. Anything that needs to get done, you're going to get it done, you know, and things that they don't know how to do, you have to figure out how to do, you know, and so that's a fun time, because, you know, you have to embrace wearing different hats and trying different things and doing the best you can with what you have. As the company grows, you know, in fact, one of the guys before that we used to work with, he goes, I remember when we used to all fit in one elevator? Yeah, it's like, you love those times, but I think as the company grows, where you transition as a leader, though, is that it becomes more important to communicate this fast-moving vision. Your vision hasn't changed, but all of these strategic steps and all of these tactical steps that you're taking as a nimble startup, you know, happens fast. There's so many things that are going on, and trying to keep everybody on the same page, because now it's not just a handful of people, but, you know, a team of people that need to understand where you are and make sure that what they're doing aligns with what you're doing. And because we need to work all together and say, this is our goal, this is our objective, these are our highest priorities as a company. And that changes significantly as your company grows. And then, as you know, Debbie also said, is that even as a CEO, even when it's larger and your role becomes more you know, traditional in terms of what you need, you have to be still willing to roll your sleeves up and jump in when you need to and really work. And I think that knowing that people know that you're that you're in it with them, that we're in it together, we all have skin in the game. You know, I think that's a very important thing, because, you know, again, just quick story. We had a really tight deadline with a customer. And I mean, seriously, we were working 7 days a week. I would bring in lunch, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, we just lived there and worked there for like a month. And did I need to be there every day? No. But did I have to be there every day? Yes. Because if they're going to do it, I have to do it. If they're suffering, I need to suffer. You know, we're all in it together. We're doing it together. And you help however way you can. So I think those are different things, you know, that again, continue to build the relationships that you have in the startup. And you want to maintain that, because a corporate culture it changes, it's dynamic, and you want it to continue to be a healthy one.
Thank you. And so piggybacking on the culture, I know as founders are told how important it is to have values, and such a big part of their culture. And a lot of time values you use get like written and put on the wall, and that's just where it stops. But what does it actually look like to integrate and stand up for your values as a leader? Yeah. So Irene, I'll let you take this one first.
Yeah, so I think you have to back up what you say. Otherwise, it's just words. You know, and so in terms of what your foundational values are, and again, I'll share a story. We had a customer who was quite angry on the phone with one of our younger customer service techs, because they were the first line of tech support. And they really just went off on them, you know, just started swearing and so forth. So I called that customer back, and I told this person, I said, you know, I understand that you're angry, and if you want to vent, you want to talk to me and try to figure out a solution, I think that's great. But you cannot speak to the people on our team this way. You know, that is just not an acceptable thing for us. And if you feel that you need to move your business elsewhere because that's, you know, what you value, then we're happy to help you transition. And that's something you have to be willing to do, because you know, you have to walk the walk. So that was something that you know, did we lose a customer? Actually, no. They just needed to vent. But, you know, again, you know, you have to tell them, you say, hey, you know, that is not okay. You have to be okay saying this is not okay. And and bear the consequences of that. So that's something that, worked out fine. And sometimes, there are such situations where, you believe it's the right thing to do, and people may not like you for it. But again, that's a part of the game too, because I've let people go, when there was, again, we won't name any names, but this one person was, kind of mocking one of our customers because they had a physical disability. And again, I told this person, this is not okay. This is not who we are, and we let them go.
Thank you for sharing those stories. I think it really grounds it in reality, right? Instead of on the wall. Debbie, what about you? What looks like to stand up for your values?
Yeah, and maybe I'm going to answer this.
And actually, I'm going to pause real quick and just send a reminder to the audience to please start putting in your Q&A if you have questions, because we're going to be coming up on that portion. I don't see any yet, but I know you've got them. Sorry, Deb. Yes, values and practice.
And I'm going to approach this maybe from a little bit different perspective, because, I think standing up for your values is truly a sign of strong leadership and character. And when you are really believing in a certain path and a certain way forward, it's very difficult when you encounter others who, because of different backgrounds and opinions and perspective, maybe don't jump on board with you right away. And I find that in being caught in this situation currently, it's almost like dealing with a negotiation. You figure out where you have commonality and things you can agree with, that then present the foundation for having an open discussion about what you don't agree about. And then if you can honestly establish and state the things where disagreement lie, then you can start brainstorming about how maybe each of you, or however many parties, can have your cake and eat it too. The current situation that I'm in, I think we're looking at a way of analyzing data, and I'm concerned that we're not going to have a sufficient sample size. And I'm going head to head with some of those in clinical research. So it's really, I have to respect, and I do respect the opinion, but I've been there on the other side when at the end of the study, you don't have a sufficient sample size and maybe you miss your endpoint. So we currently are discussing ways that perhaps we can have our cake and eat it too. Maybe we can have fewer treatment groups. Maybe we can add a few more patients to the study. But I think that, understanding and respecting one another, and understanding that I have strong values, other people have strong values, but trying to find a commonality where you can negotiate and do what's best for the company is something that's productive.
I think that really allows room for collaboration and bringing everyone along with you. And I think you've mentioned that in different ways a few times. So not glossing over or bulldozing over that conflict. Jenna, this next question is for you. We're often told to prioritize self-care and balance in order to avoid burnout. But how do you actually realistically apply that advice when you're in the middle of launching a company? You've got all of the tremendous pressure, and the money's running out, and investor expectations, and board expectations. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, it's not easy. Anybody who tells you it is misleading you. But I'll kind of take the question in two parts. First of all, if you're not taking care of yourself, you clearly can't take care of your business, your team, your family. Everybody knows that. But I think the other thing that they don't talk about is if you are not embodying self-care and the importance of self-care, then your team will not feel they have permission to do the same. And so if you're burning yourself out, then the likelihood is they're burning themselves out, and a burned out team will not succeed. It's actually something that I look at and analyze almost every week. Did we invest in team bonding? Do I have team members that are working till 10 o'clock at night consistently? And I can see that. So, and those are the team members I reach out to and I say, hey, I think you should take Monday off, or I really think you should shut it down at 6 o'clock and do something positive for yourself. And I try to lead by example. My team knows 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock is my family time. It will not be impeded on. It's the time I spend with my kids. I do dinner, I put them to bed, I do all of those things, and being a mom is a bigger priority to me than being a business manager or business leader. So I think that that's a very important thing to do. The second thing is balance. I think this word is really silly. because there's no such thing as balance. I actually heard somebody say it really nicely, a leader I really respect. She said, imagine you have a boat, and essentially you can only fit 4 things on the boat. You have to decide what those 4 things are, and that boat, the things on the boat may change every month, every quarter, every year. But I think as a leader, you have to decide and prioritize what's on my boat this month. You know, it may be it's always going to be my family, but my family, maybe my career, but I may not have friendship interaction on my boat this month. I may not have cooking on the boat. So figuring out what is important to you right now and being okay saying you can't be good at everything and putting things off your boat. That is the best advice I can give on the concept of balance, because I think sometimes you try to do too many things well, and what suffers the most when you do that is yourself. You don't take care of yourself. You don't take the time for yourself. And you have to recharge your own batteries if you're going to have the energy to get to the finish line.
Absolutely. This myth of superwoman having it all at the same time. So I want to move into our first Q&A. So I have Sapna. Oh, hi, Julie. Hi, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I can read it if you want. Yes, Sabna. So she says, very good information shared by all the panelists. Can any one of you please talk about your experience in raising capital in the early pre-revenue stage? Passion, team, products, etc. is good, but my real world experience shows that most investors like to see substantial revenue traction before they invest. Sometimes this is the biggest hurdle in a startup's growth. Comments, suggestions? And I think Irene has her hand up.
Yeah, well, you know, this emTRUTH is just starting out, you know, and again, like I said, in terms of what it was, we actually, for this startup, like I said, my first startup was traditional venture funding. And when I took over, you know, it was big dollars. I was looking to raise 8 million, I raised 11, so it was oversubscribed. This company with emTRUTH, what we wanted to focus on was making sure that, again, that it was the right investor for us, you know, that it was a partnership. And so we held off, you know, we really did a lot of bootstrapping early on. And we just, you know, finished our first round of seed financing in terms of a capital raise. You know, we don't have annual recurring revenues that, you know, larger VCs that want to write those larger checks are going to want to see. And where we found the difference was this, is that we do want to show traction, so we have pilots that we have. Sometimes we're not paid a lot for those pilots, but they're what we call our lighthouse programs that you can point to that will show you that there is a market demand for it. And we have good partnerships. So the folks that we raised our seed capital with, they are all investors that are either current or former executives in industries that we want to be with, because they will help us grow. They recognize that that's why we were raising the dollars. You know, that we had a purpose for the money. We knew what we were going to do with it. And we're now getting ready for our next year's Series A round, you know, in terms of what we're going to bring in terms of institutional investors. And then lining up those ducks in a row, several things. One is a shout out to Sbdc, because we were invited to submit a phase 1 proposal to the NSF, which we've never done before. So we've been working closely with our Sbdc consultant, who is fabulous, to really help us, Garrett, because, you know, we don't know, you know, we've never dealt with the NSF before. So, you know, take advantage of those resources. The other thing is that we were very careful about which accelerators we wanted to join. There were, you know, a bunch of accelerators that were interested in us that I really, really loved them, but they were not our focus. So we were recently selected to be, out of over 300 companies applied, we were one of 30 that were selected for Ibm Startup Accelerator. And what was good about the Ibm Startup Accelerator is that it was aligned with what our corporate strategy is, which is they sell to the same customers. You know, they have they've embraced the technologies. We're a blockchain and AI company. They've embraced those technologies as part of their strategic values. And so we're excited about that. We, in fact, start off on this accelerator program the end of this year. So it's those would be things that I would recommend if you're pre-revenue. You know, what they're looking for is annual recurring revenue. That's a key metric, ARR, right? Annual recurring revenue. And if you're not there yet, do other things to line yourself up for it, to get that smaller round of seed financing, to put a little gas in the tank.
Thank you. Debbie.
I feel like I need to pipe in here because of being a VC. But in my world, where our companies are probably 5 to 10 years from revenues. So we are funding development of a product, and our business model is mostly M&A. So I can't address your concern, but I understand where you're coming from. And also in our world, I think that the type of product you're developing eventually gets to be revenue dependent. For example, if you're developing devices, often potential acquirers want to see revenue versus drugs. They pretty much want to see proof of safety and efficacy. So,
thank you. Jenna, did you have anything you wanted to add? All good if not.
I think everybody covered it pretty well.
Perfect. Are there any other questions before we wrap up?
Usually there's some people pipe up at the end, so I can first of all thank our amazing panel and our fantastic moderator, Tracy Podell. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today, and especially for hanging in there as we shifted this panel to webinar format from our original plan to be in person. Sapna has a follow-up question, which is, Irene, great tips, but since my product industry is competitive, the regular channels like Sbdc and accelerators haven't worked yet yet. Any references? So any other supplemental resources that you've used to
What
help?
industry?
She says omega-3 DHA supplements.
Oh, supplement industry. The supplement industry, for those competitive, have you thought about maybe a partnership with a larger organization that will give you the credibility that you need? Even if you have to white label it, for example, like put their branding on it, but it's your stuff to just get your foot in the door. Those might be, you want to think creatively about ways to get in, even though it's competitive. And I'm sure there's opportunities for that. And if it's in the supplement industry, you might even tap into some supplement companies that are large enough to have their own venture funds that might see you as something strategic.
It's great advice. Thanks so much. So as we wrap up here, I hope all attendees can join us next Thursday at noon for our Women Talk Tech panel on funding, which also has a wonderful experience lineup of female founders and executives. Again, you will receive the recording and slides tomorrow via email. And if you would like more information on one-on-one consulting for your tech or life science business, please call 1-800-616-7232 or go to sbdctech.org/contact and we will pair you with a consultant. If we didn't get to your questions, or if you have any other questions that pop up later, please email hkhaled@fullerton.edu and we'll get your question to the appropriate panelist. Again, thank you so much to our panel, our stakeholders, our regional director, Mike Daniel. We are here to help you and your business start, grow, and succeed. Together with the SBA and GoBiz, we are well positioned to help you deal with COVID and all of its after effects. So please reach out to us if you need any assistance. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.